Hi, my name is Max Thorpe. I'm a world record-breaking athlete, two-time Atlantic Ocean rower. The things that motivated me to take on the Atlantic row was I was in a period of my life where I had kind of come to a bit of a slowdown in what I felt were the things that really kind of made me me. I needed to change something about my lifestyle. I decided to look for a challenge and something that could push me, test me. It was pretty evident almost immediately when I stumbled across the Atlantic row that this was the one that I wanted to do. This was the challenge for me. It just felt like it would push me mentally and physically beyond anywhere that I'd ever been before. The Atlantic row is a annual race that runs from La Gomera in the Canaries to Antigua, and it's estimated to last between 40 and 90 days. It's a 3,000-mile journey. It's got an array of different challenges, whether it's lack of sleep, the physical output, the mental strain, the emotional strain of the isolation, and then obviously there's all the things that go on around you in an environment which is literally constantly changing. So after our first 9 days, which was a sort of real baptism of fire in the Atlantic, things took a pretty dramatic turn very quickly. A huge rogue wave came out of nowhere essentially and turned us in the air, then slammed us upside down onto the water. There's kind of total darkness underneath the water, and I was scrambling to get back to the surface. You know, we had kind of survived the capsize, and for us it gave us a load of energy. You know, what a kind of story to tell, I suppose we were thinking, and what an experience to have had out here and to have got through. And now we kind of push on and continue our way to Antigua. I opened up the cabin hatch and a huge plume of smoke just completely engulfed me. And I immediately grabbed hold of the hatch, slammed it shut, turned to Chris and just said fire. And what had happened is in the impact of the capsize, it was such a huge rogue wave that it had dislodged our two marine batteries that had then split and caught fire, completely decimating all of our communications, navigation equipment, and ultimately rendering our safe space completely uninhabitable. At this moment, just as we realised we had the fire, the conditions worsened dramatically. And now we were facing waves of up to around 15 metres. We were starting to have these discussions around what our next sort of 24 hours was going to look like, trying to stay safe on board this boat, not knowing kind of who, what, or if anyone would be able to get to us to give us assistance. So we set off the EPIRB, and we knew now that there was an international search and rescue effort was initiated. It was really sort of a torturous kind of experience for our minds, just kind of having to just sit and wait, knowing that we were over 1,000 kilometers from land. We didn't know if anyone was going to be able to get to us, and even if they did, would they be able to locate us? A small ocean rowing boat in these big seas in the pitch black. And so you kind of start to kind of catastrophize around, you know, where this night is going and what is the end point of our experience here. We got to the early hours of the next day, and we spotted a light on the horizon. And I just remember this moment with Chris where we kind of looked at each other and both of us breathed kind of a huge sigh of relief. And you know, that real sense that this horrendous experience was going to be over. What we didn't realize in those moments that actually the whole experience was about to get a whole lot worse. What became apparent was this was a 250-meter oil tanker. It initially hit us head on, almost crushing us. Chris was at one end of our ocean rowing boat, nearer the rope, and he swung off a few seconds later. And then I swung off as well, and we were both hanging off the side of the tanker. But then a few seconds after that, I lost my grip. I fell straight into the ocean below. And I emerged from beneath the water and just saw Chris and the tanker just powering away from me. One of the things that obviously kicks in these moments is that sort of survival instinct, and without much thought I just started swimming. I just, you know, what's the last thing I can do in this situation? Well, it's swim towards or after the tanker. And so there was this really quite ridiculous situation now where I was just trying to claw my way back through the water to just hold on to whatever kind of shred of hope I might have left of being reconnected. And just as I did that, I kind of took a few strokes and then stopped and kind of looked up towards the tanker. Then in front of me there was a reflection off the water from the lights on the bridge of the tanker, and I knew pretty much immediately what it was, and it was a rope. Started trying to drag myself across, swimming across to this rope, and literally managed to grab hold of the last sort of 6 inches. Now I was being dragged behind the tanker, just holding on, just hoping that I would be able to find my way back towards the ladder. A few moments later, we begun to be pulled up side by side and dragged over onto deck. I think that was a moment that we probably looked at each other and just realised it would be something that would be a kind of defining part of the rest of our lives. This experience just told me a lot about the kind of the limits that you can go to survive in extreme situations, and when you are challenged, how you are forced to adapt. But ultimately all that training and that we did do really meant that it enabled us to kind of come through this kind of worst case scenario, and we were probably challenged far beyond the original goal of just getting across the Atlantic. Exactly 2 years after setting off from La Gomera in 2017, I set off from La Gomera again, and after another sort of row which had pretty much everything in terms of conditions, in terms of experience, we arrived in Antigua, and the sort of cherry on the cake was we had broken the world record to become the fastest pair ever to row across the Atlantic. That whole moment of crossing the finish line is just something that will just never be surpassed. For me, it was just the most euphoric, incredible moment, just that accumulation of all that emotional, physical and kind of mental strain and effort that had gone in over 6 years of my life. All of these things had just accumulated to the most perfect experience that ended in the most perfect way. One of the things that really kind of defined our mentality in the second row was something that we had written above our cabin, so we would see it all day, every day as we were rowing. It said, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. I mean, life really is about overcoming challenges, because that's where you're going to get the most growth, that's where you're going to get the most reward. The whole point of setting yourself a goal is to break down your own boundaries. So I think for people that are taking on challenges, the key thing that they find difficult is, I guess, that initial sense of self-belief. That is the essence of taking on a challenge. In the moment you decide to do it, you shouldn't feel ready. The point is that you're going to go on a journey, you're going to be growing and developing as you go. It's the learning experience and it's the ability to change who you are that is really the defining factor of these types of experiences. This is your facilitator to be the person you want to be. You can start big, you can start small. They're all going to have the same impact on developing you as a person, changing your life in positive ways. Just look for something that you feel like will test you. Look to something that is daunting. Look to something that you haven't done before. Nothing's guaranteed. Just remember that if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And ultimately, we all want to change and develop for the better as we move forward in our lives.